Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We left off last time in some fall foliage in Tennessee, and in this footage, we are still camped out there at the same spot. We awoke to a very foggy morning, kind of eerie and calm and quiet. We found this little guy nearby, actually. He's kind of cute. But alas, we were only here for a couple days just to recharge our batteries, so we had to head back down the mountain. But again, the fall foliage was just so amazingly bright. But of course, we stopped along the way. There's a lot of great and wonderful lookout points along the mountainside as you head back down to the main road. We eventually made it back down to the main road and continued to wind on through Tennessee over towards North Carolina. But next morning we awoke to Palmettos, which means South Carolina. We stayed at this Cracker Barrel overnight. It was a pleasant stay before making it over to the marshlands where we stayed for free. This is another free boondocking site in South Carolina. It was overall extremely quiet other than some of the deer hunters coming through. And I think Vinny liked it as well. We took a nice evening stroll before just returning back to the van and just completely relaxing. The next morning we awoke and continued on with our journey. This time we stopped in Conway, which was not too far from our beach destination, just to let Vinny out to stretch his legs and also kind of waste some time. It was kind of neat. Everything was all decorated for Halloween. Even the town was all decorated with all the trees. It had these little jack-o'-lanterns hanging in them. It was really cute. Eventually, though, we had the sand beneath our toes and some sun shining down on us for some tans. And we just spent a time just relaxing and enjoying the beach. Vinny was in doggy daycare, and he had a wonderful time too. The next morning, we woke up to grab some breakfast at one of the local spots. It was pretty dead, but the food was not terrible by any means. It was a nice little breakfast. And then we made our way over to the main boardwalk area of the old Myrtle Beach area. This is one of the places that I have frequented quite a bit in my past few visits here, called the Fun Plaza. There's a lot of arcades here, newer and some really old games, as you'll see in the footage. It's a pretty kind of fun place to just waste a couple hours or so. These old baseball games are from the 50s. They're kind of like pinball skill games. They're really fun. And of course they have some of the traditional things like skee ball and other arcades. This is the view out from the plaza. It leads right out to the ocean. And then of course we could not leave without a souvenir for our van Miss Penny. But overall we had a really nice day hanging out with my family and just kind of having a little bit of fun down on the boardwalk. And of course, Vinny was not left out either. He had another full day of doggy daycare. The next day, we hustled down to the city and bustling streets of Charleston, South Carolina. We found ourselves a spot in a parking garage near the visitor center that actually had high clearance areas for vehicles and RVs, which that is never something you find in cities. That was kind of interesting. But overall, here's some sights from our time walking around Charleston for the day. They were actually doing a lot of renovation work while we were there on a lot of houses. Here's an example of one where everything's pretty much being stripped and redone on the houses. It's really cool if you can walk by and see them working on the inside. Everything's down to bare bones. It's kind of cool looking back into the past. And of course, everything was festively done for Halloween. Overall, Charleston's a really wonderful place. You don't necessarily need tours or guides or anything like that, although they are quite a bonus. Just walking around is kind of interesting, and there's a lot of great placards and things along the way about some of these old historic homes. Hi everyone, I wanted to take a couple minutes to kind of talk about our experience in Charleston. As you'll see in the video footage, we are there and then abruptly we're not. So our plan was to stay overnight in the parking garage that you saw the footage of. This allowed high clearance vehicles to stay there overnight. And while there were quite a few folks there who you could tell were camping in there, the area was just no longer safe from what I remember from previous trips there. The garage facility no longer had on-site guards or attendants. Everything was pretty much boarded up, including the bathrooms that used to exist there. But what caused us a lot of concern is that later in the afternoon, when Paul and I kind of retreated back to our van to relax a little bit, it got extremely loud and noisy. There were a lot of vagrants and homeless people kind of mingling about. Some people obviously had some mental health issues going on. And so I didn't think too much of it. I figured they would clear out by the time, the rush hour time was over and everybody was kind of back from work and everything else and loaded onto the bus, because there was a big bus stop in front of us. Unfortunately, that was not the case. So Paul and I had booked a tour for later that evening to walk around Charleston. We got a little tired, wanted to change our shoes before that tour officially started, so we hopped on one of the free shuttle buses around town and came back to the garage, only to find the same homeless vagrants who were being extremely loud, and we just were not getting good vibes at all. And it's one of those things where you'll hear a lot in van life where you just have to use your gut instinct. And in this case, even though we had paid for a tour, we didn't take that tour. Instead, we decided to get in the van and head out of there. We paid our parking fee and headed north for the night. Unfortunately, I wish I could say it was a better circumstance too, but we ended up overnighting in a Cracker Barrel in North Charleston, and that same night, or actually I should say in the early morning, we were woken to somebody actually trying the handle of our van to get into our van. So this trip to Charleston was a little bittersweet. Those who personally know me know that this is my spot that I like to go to in the wintertime. I enjoy the history of everything and the architecture and just the inspiration of some of the places down there. And unfortunately, this was not a really great experience, but I did want to take some time to share that. I'm not much of a in-the-moment blogger, I guess you could say. My concerns are always about safety in the moment rather than trying to capture things. So I felt like this kind of warranted a little bit of just disclosure and also just kind of talking about it. So anyways, I will get back to the video footage. After an interesting night in Charleston, we headed out next morning to our next destination, northbound to Virginia. You will have to stay tuned to see what we get into. In the meantime, take care, my friends. Thanks for watching.